Welcome to today's show. My name is John. As always, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, formerly known as iTunes, or follow the links to social media in the podcast show notes. So please subscribe when you're finished listening. You can also go to classicmovierev.com to read notes, bios, and other random movie thoughts. Today's movie is Go Tell the Spartans, 1978. The title is based on the poem by Simonides, Go Tell the Spartans, strangers passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie. Of course, the above quote is about the Spartan-Greek battle of Thermopylae, or Hot Gates, in 440 BC, where 300 Spartans held off a vastly superior Persian army at the cost of all of their lives. Naturally, I had never heard of the Battle of Thermopylae the first time I watched this movie, and was not prepared for the ending. This movie is rated 6.8 on IMDb, and has a poor audience score of 55% on RottenTomatoes.com. This movie is better than that. It's actually pretty funny in places. The great Roger Ebert stated, quote, Go Tell the Spartans considered the war in Vietnam in terms of the microcosm of Muck Wah in 1964, and so contains a lot of statements that are meant to be prophetic in hindsight. It also considers the war in terms of countless earlier movies about earlier wars, so we get tried and true characters like the gung-ho second lieutenant, the crazy kid, the battle-scarred sergeant, the wisecracking radio operator, and of course, the commander who has seen it all before. But the cliches do their duty once again. Generally speaking, the movie's tightly directed by Ted Post, whose most successful film was the Clint Eastwood thriller Magnum Force. Post is apparently directing on a modest budget, and yet he carries a realistic warscape and believable characters. The most believable is Lancaster, who brings a nice subtlety to his character. Unquote. A Lincoln Center card for this movie says, quote, a cult fave, and deservingly so. Go Tell the Spartans was hard-headed and brutally realistic about our dead-end presence in Vietnam. Released the same year as Coming Home and The Deer Hunter, this film won critical admiration, but audiences preferred individualized sagas, sentiment, and romantic melodrama. Rather than tackle the effects of the war on physical and emotional wounded vets, this brave film exposes the fundamentally tactical lunacy of a war as perceived by an American officer, Burt Lancaster, who knows better, but must follow through on stupid, self-destructive orders from above. This is one of Lancaster's best performances. Embittered, a cog in the military juggernaut, this good man foresees the killing waste to come. Unquote. Actors.
Right, and I'm a Shakespearean actor.
One of the greatest actors ever, Burt Lancaster played the battle-weary Major Asa Barker. Lancaster was covered in Episode 30, Birdman of Alcatraz, 1962. Dabney Coleman had a teeny-tiny uncredited part as a helicopter pilot. Coleman was covered in Episode 139, War Games, 1983. Craig Wasson played Army Volunteer Corporal Stephen Coursey. Wasson was born in 1954 in Oregon. In 1972, began acting in New York, but moved to L.A. in 1975. He began working in television and eventually made it into movies. His first film seems to be as a hippie boy in the thriller Roller Coaster, 1977. His big break came in 1978. He was in 2 Vietnam War films, The Boys in Company C, 1978, where you see R. Lee Ermey doing an early version of the Marine drill instructor he perfected for Full Metal Jacket, 1987, and the second film being today's Go Tell the Spartans, 1978. The next year he was in The Outsider, 1979, which I remember is a very good film about an American joining the IRA. It has a surprise ending. He had more respectable movies with Four Friends, 1981, and Body Double, 1984. Seeming like he was on top, the movie roles got worse until he was in the likes of A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, 1987, and Sasquatch Mountain, 2006. Jonathan Goldsmith played Sergeant Olenowski. Who is Goldsmith? You already know. Goldsmith was born in 1938 in New York City.
I'm walking here! I'm walking here!
I won't say much about the guy, as he is really a major television actor. He did show up in a few movies such as Hang 'em High, 1968, Ice Station Zebra, 1968, Getting Shot While Uncredited in The Shootist 1976, and Go Tell the Spartans 1978. Why do you know him? He's the original, most interesting man in the world from the Mexican beer commercials. Mark Singer played Captain Alfred Olivetti. Singer was born in Canada in 1948. Wait, the Beastmaster is Canadian? He moved to New York and then to Texas. He started acting during his junior year of high school. After college, Singer started working in television. Go Tell the Spartans 1978 was his first movie. He played a blind musician in If You Could See What I Hear 1982. That same year, the movie that he is most associated with, The Beastmaster 1982, came out as well. He became a part of the V Alien television series, which continued until the mid-1980s, not counting one episode in 2011. Beastmaster 2, Through the Portal of Time 1991, reprised his earlier role. He was active on television and his last role was in 2016. James Hong played the Old Man. Hong had 424 movie and television credits that spanned from television's Kung Fu 1972 to 75 to Wayne's World 2 1993 to Kung Fu Panda 2008. This prolific actor was born in Minnesota in 1929. Hong studied engineering at the University of Minnesota. Since he was interested in acting, he moved to California and graduated from USC. He worked for the county but would take time off to be in films and television. After a time, he gave up the county work. This is going to take a bit, so let me catch my breath and take a drink. Hong's first movie was Dragonfly Squadron 1954. He had a part in Godzilla King of Monsters 1956, Flower Drum Song 1961, and Destination Inner Space 1966. Hong was in the great Steve McQueen anti-war movie The Sand Pebbles 1966 and sci-fi classic Colossus The Forbin Project 1970. Hong was another Asian American actor that spent some time on television's Kung Fu 1972 to 75. He was in Chinatown 1974 and its sequel The Two Jakes 1990. He acted in the comedies The In-Laws 1979, Airplane 1980, and True Confession 1981. He was in the super sci-fi Blade Runner 1982 and kicked it up with Chuck Norris in Missing in Action 1984. He was great as the evil wizard in Big Trouble in Little China 1986 and joined with Eddie Murphy for The Golden Child 1986. He was awesome as Cassandra's father in Wayne's World 2 1983, even doing an aerial kung fu battle with Wayne. He was on television's Kung Fu The Legend Continues 1994 and was in Operation Dumbo Drop 1995, which is a lot better than it would seem by the title. He showed he had serious acting chops in Red Corner 1997. However, he is best in comedies, whether they be the traditional like Balls of Fury 2007 or animated like Mulan 1998, Kung Fu Panda 2008, Kung Fu Panda 2 2011, Kung Fu Panda 3 2016, and Sherlock Gnomes 2018. Of course, he played the goose and father of Po in the Kung Fu Pandas, and there is no secret sauce.
Paul, I think it's time I told you something I should have told you a long time ago. The secret ingredient of my secret ingredient soup.
Oh.
Come here. The secret ingredient is nothing.
Huh?
You heard me. Nothing. There is no secret ingredient.
Wait. It's just plain old noodle soup? You don't add some kind of special sauce or something?
Don't have to. To make something special, you just have to believe it's special.
Evan C. Kim played the Vietnamese liaison Cowboy. Kim was born in America, but for the life of me, I can't find out where. It was, however, on February 17, 1953. Like many Asian American actors, Kim started on the television series Kung Fu in 1975. He had a small part in Baby Blue Marine 1976 with Richard Gere and Jan Michael Vincent. He had another small uncredited role in MacArthur 1977. He made a major splash with his next 4 movies. These movies are the cult comedy The Kentucky Fried Movie 1977, Today's movie, Go Tell the Spartans 1978, Caveman 1981, and the wonderfully campy Megaforce 1982. He was associated with the miniseries V in 1983. He had an important role in the Deadpool 1998, and his last film was Loving Lula 1992. Hilly Hicks played Signalman Toffee. Hicks was born in L.A. in 1950. He is known for a bit of television work in Halls of Anger 1970, The Terrible They Call Me Mr. Tibbs 1970, Grey Lady Down 1978 about a submarine, Go Tell the Spartans 1978, and Raise the Titanic 1980. He is now a very successful Methodist minister. Story.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
This movie begins in 1964 with U.S. Army Advisor Major Asa Barker, Burt Lancaster, leading a South Vietnamese patrol back to base. Barker soon sees his counterpart, an Army of the Republic of Vietnam Corporal, Nguyen Cowboy, played by Evan Kim, torturing a prisoner. Barker stops Cowboy from killing the man.
Cowboy, get that man out of that jug.
He say he not Kong. We make him say he Kong.
He can't say anything if you drown him. Now get him out.
Yes, sir, Major. Instant man.
Back at his command hut, Barker is assisted by the company radio operator, Signalman Toffee, Hilly Hicks. Competent Captain Alfred Olivetti, Mark Singer, is working on maps. Barker says he wants to kill Cowboy, but Olivetti says Cowboy speaks too many languages to lose. The new map is of a place called Muck Wa that the higher-ups want information on. Although there is nothing near Muck Fuck, as Barker calls it.
We got a query from Saigon about some crummy hamlet called Muck Wa. It's in this map plot here.
What do they want?
Complete position paper.
Oh, shit. Too goddamn many static defense posts as it is. That's what happened to the French. They got themselves tied down on static defense. Make up a position paper, Al. Tell them that Mukwa has about... Mukwa has about 200 people.
It is near the Da Nang to Phnom Penh Highway. It is near the site of a French massacre from the Indochina War. Barker decides to send in a fake report. New troops are brought in to meet Barker. These men include rookie or shaved-tail Lieutenant Raymond Hamilton, John Unger, First Sergeant Olenowski, Jonathan Goldsmith, Medic Corporal Abraham Lincoln, Dennis Howard, and the draftee who volunteered for Vietnam, Corporal Stephen Corsi, Craig Wasson. Barker knows Olenowski from the Korean conflict. Olio is not the man he was before. As for Shavetail, the Army has always used mules. A new mule with no experience had its tail shaved. When it was trained to carry gear, it had a single bell shape shaved into the hair on the tail. When it can be ridden, it gets 2 shaved bells on the tail. That night, Hamilton and Corsi are sent on mosquito patrol, a type of hazing. Barker and Olivetti watch to make sure flares are fired over a firefight in the jungle. Inside the hut, Lincoln is getting high on opium, but Olio goes for the booze. They clipped this scene for Platoon 1986. Some days later, Barker's commander, General Harnitz, Dolph Sweet, flies down and asks about Muck Wa. Harnitz says Barker never reconnoitered at Muck Wa because it has been abandoned since 1953. The general believes holding this town is the key to holding Da Nang. Even though Barker doesn't have enough men, he is ordered to occupy the town. Barker tells Olivetti that he used to be the general's superior officer before he orders Olivetti to arm about 30 rice paddy farmers with shotguns and a few machine guns to support the occupation. He puts Hamilton in charge with Cowboy, First Sergeant Olio, Corporal Ackley, John Magna, Corporal Lincoln, and Corporal Corsi. Barker asks Olio to help out and gives him a squad of crack mercenaries. Although there's been no VC activity in that area, Olio reminds him that every time GIs show up, Charlie comes too. One of the paddy farmers is Old Man James Hong. The force leaves for Muck Wa by truck. On the road to Muck Wa, there is a barricade in the road. Odd. No one knew they were coming. Corsi is sent to check the roadblock for explosives. He finds a tripwire and Cowboy sends the mercenaries to find Charlie. They bring in one man wearing all black. After Cowboy can't get any information, he kills the VC. The Americans are horrified. The road turns into a jungle and the trucks leave as the men head on foot. Corsi is on rear guard with Old Man and a few other militias. Lieutenant Finley Watsburg, David Clennon, arrives at Barker's headquarters. He is a psychological ops, known commonly as Psych Ops officer. He has a system of color-coded blocks he believes will tell them where the VC will attack next based on recent activity fed into a computer in Saigon.
A computer in Saigon will sift all intelligence reports and reduce the information to parables, ratios, and mean averages, whereby we shall be able to assign defense priorities. That is, sir, the incident flow indicator will indicate which of your outposts is the most endangered. I'll enter that name on the indicator here, condition red. Number 2 will be condition orange. Number 3, condition yellow.
You mean you are going to tell us where the VC will attack before they do it?
With reasonable accuracy, sir.
The foot patrol makes it to Mukwa, which looks like a fire base that has been abandoned many years before. The Arvins clean the village and the helicopter drops some supplies. In the middle of the base is a cemetery halfway underwater. Olio takes over and gets the triangle-shaped defenses in order. The lieutenant has the trots. Corsi goes to the cemetery, which is the graves of the 302 French soldiers that died defending Mukwa. The sign over the entrance is in French and says, Boule coucouche avec moi. I don't know, it says the same thing as the Spartan quote in French. Later, Corsi and Cowboy lead a patrol outside of the base. A group of old men, women, and children are fishing and washing in a stream. Cowboy says they are commies and wants to kill them. Corsi gives them chocolate and makes friends. This quote from historian Stephen J. Ambrose is appropriate. In the spring of 1945, around the world, the sight of a 12-man squad of teenage boys, armed and in uniform, brought terror to the people's hearts. Whether it was a Red Army squad, a German squad, or a Japanese squad. That squad meant rape, pillage, looting, wanton destruction, senseless killing. But there was an exception. A squad of GIs, a sight that brought the biggest smiles you ever saw on people's lips and joy to their hearts. This may not be totally true about Americans, but it is how we used to try and act. It might be good to try again. Corsi brings them back to the base. He befriends a teenage girl called Butterfly, Denise Kumaji. In the cemetery, Corsi finds a note that says, Yankee, go home. He then sees a one-eyed VC. The whole base goes on alert. That night, the VC mortar attacked the base. Lincoln is high as a kite and hit during the attack. Corsi is out on patrol and kills the mortar crew with the help of Old Man and some militia. For the first time, he sees that VCs can be women and children. Butterfly constantly watches Corsi. The one-eyed VC watches from outside the wire. Olivetti tells his plan for advancing through the ranks. Barker gives him a warning saying that after 3 wars and a bunch of medals, why does he think he's still a major? Barker says the blocking signals are booze and pudendum. He says he can handle the booze, but the pudendum got him. He apparently had an affair with the general's wife, and he has never been promoted since.
You'll do it because you got the coal and you got the steam. Watch out for those fucking block signals. Booze and pudenda. I can handle the booze all right. But it was the pudenda that got me.
I don't know that word, sir.
Well, in ladder circles, I think they call it pussy. And this was my general's lady. Well, finally, I screwed her. Big mistake, Al. Big mistake. I thought I'd cool her off some, but it turned out that I got hooked. She was the hottest thing I ever had in all my life. Thereafter, I found myself humping her on any and every occasion in all fashions known to man. There was a big to-do in an embassy in Washington, and I accompanied the general and his lady. Very prestigious affair. Even the president was there. And while the general was brown-nosing around the president, the lady and I slipped out into the garden. And she sat with her back to the door while I remained standing, keeping a sharp lookout all around. Whereupon she proceeded to make love to me, orally. Well, as you well know, there comes a time in the sexual encounter when a fella is apt to lose interest in the surroundings, which is precisely what I was guilty of doing. And when things swam into focus, the first thing I saw was the general, standing in the arch, pink roses all around his old gray head. And next to him was the ambassador's wife, and you know who.
The president?
Of the United States. Because the lady with her back to the door didn't know they were there. And she had not yet ceased operations.
What'd you do?
Do?
When you saw him standing there?
I did the only thing I've ever been trained to do. I saluted.
Psychops moves Mukwa to Yella. That same night, Mukwa is attacked. Of course, he has to cover a river crossing so Olenowski can get across. One of the militia is hit on the other side of the river. Lieutenant Hamilton insists on going after the man as Corsi tries to stop him. Hamilton is shot down in the river. General Harnitz comes back and says that he was right and Mukwa was a key target. Barker tells him that he has to get reinforcements from ARVN Commander Colonel Min, Clyde Kusatsku. He said the ARVNs want to trade and will not help for free. Of course, he goes to Olenowski and asks for help burying Hamilton. Olenowski throws him out and then kills himself with a pistol. The news makes it back to Barker about the two leaders being killed. He sends Olivet to be in command and says he can bug out at any time. Barker goes to Saigon to meet with Colonel Min. Min refuses to give the 300 requested troops, saying he has heard that they may have to put down a coup in Saigon. Barker agrees to send him 1,500 rounds of artillery shells if he gets the 300 troops.
I will have 500 rounds of howitzer shells brought in by air transport, and 1,000 rounds delivered by truck convoy.
It would take 4 or 5 days for the truck convoy to bring the shells from the American depot. That could conceivably be too late for their use.
Could be.
In such a case, the American depot would desire the return of the shells, would it not?
In the whole history of the United States, they have never asked for the return of anything, be it guns, money, boats, or howitzer shells. They wouldn't know how to ask for the return of anything. If they did, it would screw up the bookkeeping, and everybody in Washington would have a goddamn nervous breakdown.
Olivetti takes over Mukwa and they are hit by a large force of VC. Corsi and the old man are out on patrol and call in mortar fire as the VC cross the river. Old man is hit, but Corsi brings him in. General Harnitz has grounded all American support planes so that they can stand by in case of the coup. Barker takes the radio and calls General Harnitz. When Harnitz gets the message, he orders the air support for Mukwa. The message says Barker will shoot the general's balls off if Mukwa does not get the air support.
Captain, there are things in heaven and earth in the Army they didn't teach you at Virginia Military Institute. This here is one. There's some soldiers who bought the rat with their blood to say anything to anybody in a just cause. Now, military coup or no military coup, you hop ass over to the combo room and fire off a signal to Nighthawk Control to put some air support over Mukwa.
Yes, sir.
Because apart from the fact that maybe I got old Hazer stretched pretty thin up there, that crazy son of a bitch might just do what he says here. Shoot my balls off.
Old man is treated by Lincoln. The gunships arrive at Mukwa with flares and support fire. They drive the attacking VC back with air and ground fire. The north side of the base gets hit, and the guys inside run to that side and barely stop the attack. The next day, Barker and a convoy head to Mukwa. Psychops arrives in a helicopter and says the 507th VC Battalion, consisting of 1,000 fighters, is attacking. The general has ordered that no more forces be committed to the defense of Mukwa and that everyone should be taken out by helicopter. Cowboy, the mercenaries, and the militia are ordered to walk the civilians out, while the Americans and the wounded are to leave by helicopter. A leaking hydraulic line forces them to leave the walking wounded behind. This includes Old Man. Corsi refuses a direct order to get on the ship. The helicopter leaves, but Barker stays. Barker makes the plans for their exit that night. It depends on Min's artillery.
You screwing this kid?
No, sir.
Aerial photographs show that this gully runs back here about a half a mile, then flattens out into a meadow. You know it?
Yes, sir.
That's the way we'll go. The province chief's got a bunch of 155 howitzers ready to blow hell out of this neck of the woods tonight. If I can get the son of a bitch to use his ammo, Charlie be too busy ducking shells to worry about us. You sure you're not screwing this kid?
Yes, sir.
Somebody ought to.
They rig everything to blow up. Corsi says he is there because he kicked an officer for kicking a dog. Barker says Corsi is a tourist and he wished that he could have shown him a better war.
You're a tourist. Too bad we couldn't have shown you a better wall. Like hitting the beach at Anzio. Or smashing through the Bastogne with Patton. That was a tour worth the money. This one? This one's a sucker's tour. Going nowhere. Just round and round in circles.
The civilians try to steal weapons and run away, but Cowboy kills them. Butterfly is not among the dead. Muckwa begins to receive mortar fire. Barker requests the artillery fire. The group heads out and Barker brings up the rear. The VC ambush the column and Butterfly is in with them, having given the escape plan to them. Corsi is hit. The group takes up a defensive position in the ravine. Barker dies of blood loss. Old Man hides the wounded Corsi in the bushes just before the VC attack from every direction. In the morning, Corsi is the only one left alive. All of the dead soldiers have been stripped of their uniforms. The wounded Corsi comes face to face with the one-eyed VC in the cemetery. One Eye points his gun at Corsi, but then drops it to the ground. Corsi says, "I'm going home, Charlie, if they'll let me."
"I'm going home, Charlie, if they'll let me."
He wanders down the road away from Muckwa. World famous short summary: those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I really appreciate you spending the time listening. You can find connections to social media and email on my site at classicmovierev.com. There are links in the podcast show notes as well. Remember, this show is completely free and independent. All that I ask is that you jump over to Apple Podcast and give me a review. It really helps the show get found. Beware the Moors.